The Curtiss P-40 flight manual stated the limit with absolute clarity. Maximum dive speed was 480 miles per hour. Beyond that figure, the aircraft's structure could fail catastrophically. But in the panic of war, who was still reading manuals? Combat records tell a far more dangerous story. Some P-40s reached 661 miles per hour in steep dives. That speed came dangerously close to the sound barrier, faster than any propeller aircraft of the era dared to imagine. Why could a 1938 design endure such compressive forces? While newer aircraft were torn apart by the same air, the answer lies on April 8, 1942. High above the frozen skies of Murmansk, Soviet pilot Alexei Klobostov did something unimaginable. Out of ammunition during a chaotic dogfight, he did not disengage. He drove his P-40 straight into the tail of a German Bf-110. The German aircraft fell immediately out of the sky. But Klobostov was not finished yet. Minutes later, with his right wing badly damaged, he rammed a second aircraft, a Bf-109, mid-air. 2 German fighters were destroyed in a single sortie. But Klobostov landed safely and walked away as if nothing happened. How could one aircraft survive 2 mid-air collisions? The secret lies in the P-40's 5-spar wing structure. Imagine the wing as a steel bridge beam. Heavy, crude, but brutally resistant to breaking. A distinctly American philosophy of rugged over-engineering. Today, we are not comparing theoretical numbers on paper. We are examining a physical confrontation between design philosophies. 2 machines built for entirely different kinds of war. The Curtiss P-40 Warhawk, the Allies' stubborn sledgehammer, and the Messerschmitt Bf-109F, Germany's aerodynamic scalpel. One ruled the skies through climb performance and automation. The other dominated battlefields through dive speed and brutal firepower. This is a fight between kinetic energy and potential energy. Between diving skill and the climbing trap. Welcome to Terminal Velocity. Put these 2 fighters side by side and the contrast is immediate. The Curtiss P-40 looks like a heavyweight boxer. The Bf-109F looks like a trained track athlete. That contrast is not accidental. It is written directly into their design DNA. In reality, the P-40E was never a clean-sheet aircraft. It was a rushed modification of the older P-36 Hawk. Curtiss engineers removed the bulky radial engine. They installed the slimmer Allison V1710 to reduce drag. It was a practical solution for rapid mass production. But the price was a structure that grew even heavier than before. There is one detail that only engineers usually notice. Look closely at the landing gear. To fit inside the wing, Curtiss designed a 90-degree wheel rotation. The system was strong, unmistakably American in character. But the landing gear track remained dangerously narrow. Combined with the engine's massive torque, taxiing the P-40 felt like riding a drunk, angry bull. Many new pilots ground-looped on the runway before they ever saw an enemy aircraft. The Messerschmitt Bf-109F told a very different story. Known as the Friedrich, it was a true revolution over the Emil. German engineers stripped away every unnecessary surface. They rounded the engine cowling. They reshaped the wingtips into a semi-elliptical form. They removed external tail bracing entirely. There was only one goal: reduce aerodynamic drag to the absolute minimum. And here is the number that shaped every tactic that followed. Empty weight. A Bf-109F weighed just over 2 metric tons. The P-40E weighed nearly 2.9 tons. Fully fueled and armed, the difference approached 1 full ton. That gap created two very different destinies. The Bf-109F climbed upward like an elevator. The P-40E fell downward like a stone. The war between gravity and aerodynamics began here. Remember the P-40's nearly 4-ton combat weight. To lift that mass, the Americans relied on the Allison V-1710. It was a durable engine, producing roughly 1,150 horsepower. At low altitude, it behaved like a charging bull. Strong, stubborn, and remarkably reliable. But it carried a fatal weakness. One no pilot liked to admit. It suffered a heart condition at altitude. The problem lay in the supercharger. The P-40E used a single-stage, single-speed mechanical supercharger. Think of it like a power lifter. Extremely strong at ground level. But above 15,000 feet, the air thins rapidly. That simple supercharger cannot compress enough air. The engine begins to choke. Power collapses without warning. The heavy P-40 becomes a sitting duck, struggling against an uphill current. The Bf-109F told a different story. It was powered by the German DB601E, a genuine engineering masterpiece. Instead of fixed gears, it used a fluid coupling. The supercharger worked like a modern automatic transmission, continuously adjusting compressor speed and with altitude. The result was decisive. The 109F retained optimal power while climbing, all the way to 30,000 feet, an altitude the P-40E could never reach. But altitude was not the whole story. This was the insider detail that killed inexperienced P-40 pilots. The carburetor. The P-40 used a float-type carburetor system. During sudden nose-down maneuvers, negative G-forces forced fuel away from the intake. Fuel flow stopped instantly. The engine coughed once, then died. Critical seconds were lost in combat. The Bf-109F was already ahead of its time. It used direct fuel injection. High-pressure pumps fed fuel straight into the cylinders. Gravity and aircraft attitude did not matter. This created a decisive tactical advantage. German pilots could dive instantly at will, to attack or disengage without hesitation. Their engines never cut out. In the P-40, the situation was very different. To dive without stalling the engine, the pilot had to perform an extra maneuver, rolling inverted to maintain positive G, only then pulling the nose downward. In that brief moment of hesitation, the 109 was already gone, or safely out of reach. That was the price of older technology. When facing more advanced engineering, if the engine is the heart, the guns are the fists. And here, American and German philosophies could not be further apart. The Curtiss P-40E was often described as a flying shotgun. It carried 6 Browning M2 50 caliber machine guns. Total ammunition reached 1,686 rounds, roughly 281 rounds per gun. When you pulled the trigger, you did not simply fire. You created a wall of lead ahead of the aircraft. The P-40's tactic was brutally simple. Spray and pray. You did not need to be a precision marksman. Just place the enemy in the gun sight and hold the trigger. 6 guns fired continuously at once. American 50 caliber armor-piercing incendiary rounds were lethal, especially against the water-cooled engine of the 109. And British tests showed over a 30% penetration chance. even after passing through the fuel tank. One punctured coolant line was enough. Within minutes, the 109 would overheat and seize. The Bf-109F4 followed a very different philosophy. It was designed as a flying sniper rifle. Its main weapon was a 20mm MG-151 cannon, firing directly through the propeller hub. 2 light machine guns sat on the nose. All weapons were aligned along the center line. German pilots did not worry about convergence. Rounds flew straight along the sight line. Where you unaimed, the shells landed. But precision came at a cost. The 20mm cannon carried only 200 rounds. If you fired carelessly like an American pilot, you would be empty within seconds. This was a weapon for artists. And the greatest artist was Hans-Joachim Marseille, the Star of Africa. On September 1st, 1942, Marseille shot down 17 Allied aircraft in one day. The frightening part was not the number. It was the efficiency. Ground crews of JG-27 reported a chilling fact. Marseille averaged just 15 rounds per kill. He did not aim for wings or fuselage, using the stability of the hub-mounted cannon. He aimed directly at the cockpit. The Bf-109F was a scalpel in a surgeon's hand. The P-40 was a sledgehammer in a blacksmith's grip. In the hands of a master, the scalpel wins. But for ordinary men, the sledgehammer is safer. So what happens when these two philosophies collide in the sky? Luftwaffe manuals taught Bf-109 pilots a simple killing method. They called it the energy trap. At altitude, the Bf-109F held every advantage. It was lighter, and the DB-601E ran perfectly. Its variable supercharger let it climb like a rocket. The death of an inexperienced P-40 pilot followed a familiar script. The 109 dove in, fired a burst, then pulled straight up. Instinct screamed, "Follow him! Shoot him!" But the moment you pulled the nose upward, or the P-40's 4-ton weight turned against you, the Allison engine, already gasping, turned against you. Your airspeed collapsed towards zero. You hung suspended in the sky, helpless and exposed. That was when the 109, it's still rich with energy, rolled over and dove back down to finish the job. This was not a dogfight. It was an execution. So how did the P-40 survive? The answer lay in the opposite direction, toward the ground. A seasoned P-40 pilot never tried to climb away. He went into a high-speed dive. Remember the P-40's massive weight. In a dive, that weight became an ally. It allowed the aircraft to accelerate brutally downhill. Clive Caldwell, Australia's top ace, put it simply. It dove faster than almost any other propeller aircraft. And here, physics turned against the 109th, or above 400 miles per hour. Aerodynamic forces overwhelmed the control surfaces. The 109F's controls locked solid. German pilots had to pull with both hands, sometimes bracing their feet against the panel, just to recover from the dive. The lightweight fighter was never built for such punishment. The P-40 was a different animal. It was built like a flying tank. Its 5-spar wing and mechanical controls stayed effective, at speeds where the 109 was already frozen. The American tactic was straightforward. Dive to terminal speed. Wait for the enemy's controls to stiffen, but then snap into a hard turn. The 109 would streak past, out of control. In that instant, the hunter became the hunted. This duel proves a single rule of air combat. Never fight your enemy's fight. The P-40 wins by forcing downhill speed and frontal fire. The 109 wins by forcing climbs and slow turning fights. Misunderstand that rule, and you die. When the guns fall silent, history remembers elegant duels. But wars are not decided by knights. They are decided by logistics and industrial power. Look at the scoreboard. Curtiss built a total of 13,738 P-40s. They appeared everywhere, from burning deserts to the frozen Arctic. By contrast, while total Bf-109 production exceeded 34,000, the elite Bf-109F numbered only 2,000 to 3,400. By the decisive year of 1942, the F-4 had become a luxury item. In North Africa, Hans-Joachim Marseille shot down dozens of P-40s. But he could not stop the tide of war. While German experts chased perfect kill-to-death ratios, P-40 squadrons shifted into the kitty bomber role. They carried bombs against supply columns, tanks, and fuel depots. Those blunt, rugged P-40s. They cut the stomach out of the Afrika Korps. They contributed directly to Germany's defeat, something Marseille's air victories could never reverse. On the other side of the world, in Russia, the P-40 faced a deadlier enemy than the Luftwaffe: winter. Where the Soviet 126th Wine AP shot down 29 aircraft, losing only 4 P-40s in their first month. Then temperatures fell to -38°C. Disaster followed. Engine oil froze solid. Cooling systems cracked under the ice. With no replacement parts from America, Russian mechanics scavenged silver spoons from nearby villages. They used them to solder shattered coolant tanks. A small detail, but one that shows how hard this aircraft had to survive. So which aircraft was better? The Bf-109F belonged to aerial artists like Marseille. A sharp, refined sword for masterful duels. The P-40 belonged to soldiers who needed to live and keep fighting. It was a sledgehammer. Crude, resilient, and always ready for dirty work. And in a war of total mobilization. Sometimes you need a sledgehammer more than a sword. War does not reward what is most elegant. It rewards what remains standing the longest. The P-40 was never perfect. It was heavy, slow to climb, and unapologetically crude. But it was always there when needed. It endured bullets, cold, and constant shortage. The Bf-109F represented refined engineering excellence. But refinement requires ideal conditions to survive. When fuel runs short, when spare parts disappear, when pilots are exhausted, precision begins to lose its edge. The P-40's core value was never individual glory. It was the ability to keep fighting, to return to base, to take off again the next morning. In total war, endurance often defeats perfection. If you value military history grounded in physics, in engineering, and in real combat conditions, consider subscribing. We do not tell fairy tales about heroes. We explain why machines and people survive, and why they fail. In the next video, another confrontation, another equation of physics, another truth left behind by war.